The Peranakan Museum is found in Singapore, and it explores the history of Peranakan cultures and communities in Southeast Asia. Peranakan has meant different things at different times. The basic term is from the Malay language, the lingua franca of maritime Southeast Asia since the 15th century. Today, Peranakan has taken on the status of cultural identity and refers to a range of mixed heritage communities. Their unifying trait is the melding of ancestral cultures such as Chinese, Indian, Arab, European, and others, with the indigenous cultures of the Malay-Indonesian archipelago. Many of the objects displayed in the museum highlight the richness of material culture across the Malay-Indonesian world that migrants would have encountered, and the milieu from which Peranakan communities developed. For example, this carriage was likely used as part of a Chinese Peranakan ceremony known as Tedun. Although its shape is reminiscent of European horse-drawn carriages, it is adorned with Chinese auspicious motifs, including a quillin and a phoenix. Tedun is an important ceremony that marks a child's first year. During the ceremony, the child is seated in a carriage and pulled around a chicken cage 3 times. They are then allowed to select objects from the cage that represent and predict their personality and interests. This carriage is from Java and is dated to the 19th century. One gallery in the museum focuses on fashion. It shows how the fashion of the Peranakans is diverse, reflects hybrid influences, and evolved over centuries. For example, the kebaya, an upper garment traditionally worn by women in Southeast Asia, is on display in the gallery. The kebaya is opened at the front and traditionally would have been made from lightweight fabrics such as brocade, cotton, or lace, and is sometimes adorned with embroidery. The front is secured with either buttons, pins, or brooches. Peranakan porcelain, also called Nonyaware, after the Peranakan Chinese women who favored them, is characterized by an exuberant use of color. The most common ground color is green, varying shades of which were often used in combination with pink. Nonyaware was also produced in white, which was often used as the background for dining sets, as well as other colors such as yellow, coral red, blue, and brown. Decorative elements consist of auspicious Chinese motifs, with birds and insects among crowded floral displays as popular design. Some families had large dining sets, occasionally commissioned with family names and marks. These would have been reserved for a festive occasion, such as birthdays and the Lunar New Year. Finally, a central feature of the museum is the Peranakan wedding bed, which once belonged to Mrs. Kwa Hong Chiam of Penang. It is also the bed where she gave birth to the first 7 of her 11 children. According to her children, this bed was commissioned by her father and given to her as part of her bridal trousseau. According to her grandchild, Mrs. and Mrs. Kwa moved from Penang to Singapore in the 1920s, leaving this wedding bed in Penang. Because Mrs. Kwa wanted to give birth on the bed, the couple returned to Penang by steamship whenever her delivery dates drew near. These are just a few examples of the different objects on display at the Peranakan Museum, which explores the culture of Peranakan communities in Southeast Asia.